Have you ever felt so drained from helping others that you couldn't even help yourself anymore? Not just tired, but emotionally exhausted. You start to feel numb. You stop caring as much, even though you want to care. It's not because you've become a bad person. It's just because you're re-experiencing something called empathy burnout, and it is a real, deeply human struggle. In today's video, we're diving deep into the hidden cost of caring, why empathy burnout happens, how it sneaks up on you, and why ignoring it can quietly break your mental health, your relationships, and even your sense of identity. What is empathy burnout? Empathy burnout, sometimes called compassion fatigue, is when constantly caring for others overwhelms your emotional capacity. It's like trying to pour from a cup that's already empty. You still notice people's pain, but your ability to feel and respond starts to fade. You become irritable, detached, or even resentful, not because you don't care anymore, but because you've cared too much for too long without recharging. The everyday faces of empathy burnout, this doesn't just happen to doctors, nurses, or therapists. It happens to parents constantly sacrificing for their kids, especially if they're also caring for an aging parent. Friends who are the listener in every conversation. Partners who carry the emotional weight of a relationship. Social workers, teachers, volunteers, anyone giving emotional energy on a daily basis. The dangerous part, society often praises this level of selflessness, but behind closed doors, it can hollow you out. Why we don't notice it happening, empathy burnout rarely appears overnight. It creeps in slowly in 3 subtle stages. Overcommitment. You say yes to every request because helping feels right. Overextension. Your personal needs shrink, but the demands on you grow. Overload. Emotional exhaustion takes over, and you either keep pushing or start to shut down. At first, you think, I just need a day off. Then, weeks later, you realize you're still running on empty. Signs you might be in empathy burnout. Before we dive deeper in part 2, let's pause here. If you relate to any of these, it might be a red flag. Feeling numb or detached when hearing someone's struggles. Irritability at small requests, even from people you love. Guilt for needing space from helping others. Trouble sleeping because your mind is still on call. Losing joy in activities you once loved. If that's you, understand. It's not weakness. It's biology. Your brain and nervous system are waving a red flag, saying, we've reached capacity. In part 2, we'll break down the science behind empathy burnout, what is happening in your brain and body, and why certain people are more vulnerable to it. We'll also explore how modern life, especially social media, is quietly making this problem worse for all of us. Because before you can heal from empathy burnout, you have to understand exactly what's draining you. Now, let us peel back the curtain and see what is happening in your brain and body when the act of caring starts to take too much from you. How empathy works in the brain. Empathy isn't just an emotion, it's a neurological process. When you see someone in pain, your brain activates mirror neurons, special cells that let you mirror what others feel. It's why you wince when someone stubs their toe, or feel emotional when watching a sad movie. Here's the twist. Your brain doesn't perfectly separate their pain from your own. On a chemical level, your body reacts like you're experiencing it yourself. Amygdala activation triggers emotional alertness. Cortisol release gives your stress hormone spikes. Oxytocin release gives the bonding hormone, keeps you engaged, even if it's draining. This works beautifully in short bursts. But when you're exposed to suffering constantly, your brain stays in a semi-stressed state, and that's when burnout begins. The emotional load problem. Think of empathy as carrying a backpack. Each story you hear, each person you comfort, adds a stone to that backpack. At first, you can carry it with ease. But over time, even if the stones are small, the backpack becomes unbearably heavy. This is called emotional load, the accumulation of other people's feelings in your nervous system. Without recovery time, this load turns into emotional exhaustion. You can't process new problems. Compassion fatigue. You stop feeling the depth of empathy you once had. Physical symptoms, headaches, fatigue, and lowered immunity. Why certain people burn out faster? Some people are more vulnerable to empathy burnout because of high sensitivity. If you're an HSP, highly sensitive person, your nervous system reacts more intensely to emotional cues. Personal history. If you've been through trauma or loss, you may connect deeply with others' pain and absorb more of it. Role expectations. Parents, caregivers, and emotional anchors in families often feel they have no choice but to keep giving. Lack of boundaries. The inability to say no means your emotional door is always open. The social media effect. 50 years ago, your circle of empathy was mostly local, family, friends, neighbors. Now, with one scroll, you're exposed to global suffering, wars, disasters, injustice, illness. And here is the problem. Your brain as empathy system hasn't evolved to handle this constant input. You might think, I'm just reading the news. But neurologically, each story still adds another stone to that emotional backpack. This constant exposure can keep you in a low-grade state of emotional overwhelm, even before your personal responsibilities kick in. So far, we've defined empathy burnout and explored the brain science behind it. Now, let's talk about something many people overlook, the ripple effects. Because empathy burnout doesn't just live inside your mind. It seeps into your relationships, your work, and even how you see the world. 1. The cost to your emotional health. When you're in burnout, your emotional color palette starts to fade. You're not just less able to feel compassion, you're less able to feel anything. Joy feels muted. Sadness feels overwhelming or completely flat. Gratitude, curiosity, excitement, they all take a backseat. Psychologists call this emotional blunting. It asks your brain as survival tactic. If it can to stop the incoming emotional pain, it tries to numb you to it. The problem? That numbness doesn't only block out the bad, it blocks the good too. 2. The cost to your relationships. Empathy burnout often shows up in subtle ways. Irritability toward people you love. Feeling resentful when someone needs you. Withdrawing from social interactions because you just can't deal. It can also create misunderstandings. Friends or partners may think you've stopped caring when, in reality, you're running on fumes. Over time, relationships can grow distant, not because you want that, but because you don't have the emotional currency to keep investing. 3. The cost to your sense of purpose. Many people who burn out from empathy are in roles or situations where caring is a core identity. You might be the dependable friend, the supportive partner, the healer, the teacher, the caregiver. When burnout hits, you may feel like you're failing at being you. This can spiral into guilt, shame, and self-doubt. If I can't help people the way I used to, who am I? The cruel irony is that the more you care about your purpose, the more devastating it feels when you can't live up to it. 4. The cost to the people you're trying to help. Here as the hardest truth. Empathy burnout can unintentionally harm the very people you want to protect. You might give rushed, half-present advice. You might unintentionally minimize someone's feelings because you can't process more pain. You might avoid them altogether. This isn't because you don't care. It is because your emotional bandwidth is maxed out. But to someone who needs you, it can feel like abandonment. 5. The cost to the bigger picture. Zoom out, and empathy burnout on a large scale has societal effects. When too many people feel emotionally tapped out, we collectively become less willing to help strangers, donate, or advocate for causes. We start conserving our compassion only for emergencies, and that leaves a lot of silent suffering unnoticed. Closing part 3 and tease for part 4. So yes, empathy burnout takes a huge toll on you. your relationships, and even the world around you. But here's the good news: you can recover. In part 4, we'll talk about how to recognize the breaking point before you reach it, and the powerful mental shift that can help you protect your empathy without losing yourself.